The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine.
I read Peyton Jones more than I read Francis Chan.
Welcome to the Church Planter Podcast, everybody.
Hey, welcome. I'm just saying, reaching the unreached. Cha-ching!
I'm just saying that you sound really down and depressed compared to my upbeat and happiness. What's up?
Yeah, man, I just traveled. I got back from Exponential Boise. Boise to Men Conference.
Boise to Men. That's what they should call it.
That's a shout out to Reuben Young, who, of course, said that's what the conference ought to be named. And as soon as that went up on
he said
Facebook,
it should be named Boise to Men.
Boise to Men. Yeah, it was the Exponential Boise Regional, first ever. And one of my New Breed guys hosted that. And
Robert?
Do you remember Robert Frazier?
Yeah, I was going to say, was it Robert?
Yeah, it was.
Nice.
And so he went ahead and hosted it, and it was good, man.
You know what's funny to me
turnout.
About Robert is like an incredibly smart financial guy, and he's not in the financial business that I know of.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, you're right.
No, I mean, like,
good.
he writes articles on, he doesn't write the articles, but he gets quoted on Forbes for like his insight.
Are you serious?
Yes.
He's a smart dude.
And I'm like, dude, man, it's funny to me because it's like, he's a church planter. And I know he's not doing this, but like, he's totally up on the markets. Like, I was a financial planner. I knew how to sell this stuff. He's more like a financial analyst. He knows what's going to go up and what's going to go down. Everyone thinks financial planners know that. No, we don't even care about that. We're like, no, we sell. And we let someone else, like a Robert, actually do that stuff. And Robert is just like incredibly like well versed. He knows what's going on. It's amazing to me.
He can plant churches. He can rebuild his own house. He can organize church planting conferences. He's kind of a stud.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I know you don't keep up on this stuff, but Lyft recently had their IPO. And
I don't even know what that is.
You know what Uber is?
I don't know what an IPO is.
Initial public offering. They went public. Do you know what going public means?
Yes. Where you sell, you make stock options for people and they can buy it and own part of your. Yeah. I see the commercial where the guy's mowing his lawn. He's like, actually, if you do this, that's a fantastic commercial, by the way. I
don't watch commercials, so I have no idea. Well, okay, so Lyft did their IPO actually just a few days ago. And like starting day two, and I don't know what it is today, but day two, the stock was trading at significantly less than what the IPO was. That means everyone who bought in is already losing money if they didn't hurry up and turn around and sell like within the first 5 minutes of it being public, which is not good. I mean, that's not good at all, right? And what's funny is Robert was quoted in a Forbes article, and he goes, no, these don't make any sense. Uber and Lyft don't make any sense. They're not making money. And he goes, and what happens when they finally get autonomous cars down? Uber and Lyft are waiting for that, but the car dealers like Ford and Chevy and all those guys, they have to find a new way to make money because people aren't buying cars. So they're just going to go into that business and then put those guys totally out of business. And I was like, that's a brilliant point. Because, you know, Uber and Lyft are like waiting for this autonomous cars thing so they could just, we don't even have to pay the drivers. Well, what happens when the car dealers just go, yeah, well, we don't even have to sell you the car and we get to compete with you.
So what's an autonomous car?
The cars that don't need drivers, like they're testing them like crazy all over the place. So like right now in San Francisco, they test them. I believe in Arizona. And the law right now says you still have to have a driver in the car in case something, doesn't work. But
wow,
those drivers, like the one car recently got into an accident, and the driver, they searched his personal devices, and as soon as he got in the car, he turned on Netflix and he started watching movies. So he'd been driving for so long, he's like, these cars know how to drive themselves.
Can you imagine?
I know, crazy, right? But that's the
I
future.
think it's cool. I mean, I know people are all freaked out, but aren't the trams, like in the airports, aren't those unmanned vehicles?
Well, the tram's right on a track. There's a difference.
Well, I get the difference, but I mean,
do you remember the original Total Recall and the little taxi driver?
Yeah, Johnny Cab.
Is that what? Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, it's coming, and it's not going to wait as long as Total Recall to get here. It'll be here in the next 2 to 3 years, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
no,
Robert
cool.
was the
I'm
one who put
it.
in the article, these don't make any sense for this reason. And then to see Lyft just tank right after it goes public, I'm like, dude, man, that guy is he's on it.
Wow. You know what's kind of sad is that, we're going to miss all these opportunities for sanctification. Like, we're not going to be able to think evil thoughts at other drivers or fight, primitive urges to kill other people. Like, our sanctification just tanked, man, as well. Like,
we are going to be able to have those thoughts against autonomous vehicles, and we'll probably
I hate technology. I yell at my computer all the time. All right. Okay.
I yell at your computer all the time.
Is it a sin to yell at a robot?
I yell at your computer all the time, man. That's how much I hate your computer.
Yeah, it probably is because I don't know, man. Like, I got to think about that because anger's all right. So anger is not a sin. So maybe it's holy to be angry at technology. I don't know. I gotta figure that one out. If I can love God, and love the neighbor.
What about that technology?
Hey, let me know if you can hear my soundbite real quick. I'm just trying this. No?
What is thy bidding, my master?
No.
You can hear mine?
No. No, you got to get soundboard, and then you got to tell soundboard where you want it to play.
Need to get that. Is that like a piece of software?
It's a software, but you know what? You might need like a whole setup for it, because I had your guy who did the sound at Big Refuge.
Yeah.
He came over to my house and like, here, you need to buy this, and that's how I was able to do it. Whatever he said, I just did.
That's what I need, is someone just to point me in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because you could do it with the software, right?
I couldn't do it with just the software for me, but I don't know if that's because I'm recording or what. I don't know.
Guys, so this is not a glimpse into the back of the house conversations that Pete and I have. We actually have these front of the house. But if you do want to peek behind the scenes, check out my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Club Ninja, and you can be a part of my creative ventures. And it's not as boring as what we were just talking about. Did you like what I did? Did you like that segue?
I thought it was a valiant effort.
Thank you.
But you just have to remember, when selling, you have to make an offer that they can't refuse. Unfortunately, the offer you made, they could refuse. So you have to entice them and go, look, when you contribute to my Patreon, here's what's going to happen for you. And then the big deal is not that they're giving a Patreon. The big deal is, hey, I'm going to give you this over here, and you're going to get that over there, and you're going to be in this little inner club that I got, and this is what we do on the club. And so you're creating a desire, an irresistible offer, and they go, I have to enter that. Where's his Patreon page again? Please take my money.
I need to do that.
Huh? Yeah. No, I'm serious.
Right.
Like that's how sales works.
Yeah, I really suck at that.
Well, no, we all do, because we all do. We have to like change our thinking, and the reason for that, and this is a little bit of psychology for everybody, is because we're all thinking about what's important to us, and we have to realize that no one cares about us, not even our mama. But we need to like think about.
My mom's dead.
I know. Did that hurt? I'm sorry.
A little bit.
Well, you'll get over it.
Thanks for bringing it up again.
You'll get over it. You're a big boy. But we got to think about, okay, what's the conversation going on in their head? How can I address what's important to them? And that's the difficult part. But that's for everybody, straight across the board.
Well, okay, so here we go. You ready? I'm going to quick do this. Now, this is not the podcast about my Patreon, but tell me how I do here. I know I'm going to suck, but tell me how I do. All right. For $1, you get every week, $1, you get 5-Star Fridays, which is a glimpse into my life, my head, and everything else as I give you kind of a glimpse of what I'm reading, what I'm thinking about, what I'm pondering, yada, yada, right? For $5 a month, you get all that, and I feel like a game show host. You get access to a private Facebook group.
Did you like that? But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. You see, I was saving that one. For the $10 tier, which, oh, by the way, the $1, you become a Ninja Tortoise. You're not quite a Ninja Turtle, but as a bonus to the $1, you also get a picture, and I thought of you when I wrote this, Pete, a picture of my tortoise every month photoshopped into a ninja pose. How rad is that? Just for signing up. Because you're a Ninja Tortoise. Okay. So you get my 5-Star Fridays.
I want you to understand my point of the conversation in their mind as opposed to the conversation in your mind.
Yeah. So the 5-Star Fridays for $1. Come on. Right. But the Ninja Tortoise was for me, admittedly. It made me laugh. It was like this podcast, right?
I know, that's true, right?
So tier 5 is Ninja Turtle. That's the Facebook access to the group where you get access to me. Then the Grasshopper is you're getting up there a little bit. I call you Grasshopper. You get a video every single month, and it's a topic every month related. It can range from it's basically based on all the feedback. So it's what people are talking to me about during the month. So I'm going to double down on that and go deeper on something that people said, wow, this has really helped me. Tell me more. I'll do a video exclusive to that. And that could be from anything. Could be from my writing, could be from these podcasts, could be from articles, whatever it is. Could be interviews. Then you can go to the $25 level, which is a wax on, wax offer. You become a wax on, wax offer. And you'll get an MP3 of me. Think of this as like a little Audible every month. I'll read a chapter of a book I think you need to read, something you need for leadership, and you'll get 12 of those a year. So you'll get kind of like a snapshot every month. It's not an Audible account, but I'll read you a chapter out of a book. It could be something from Spurgeon.
I'll read you a chapter out of a book. This is brilliant.
I actually like that. I like that stuff, right? Like my secret dream is to read for Audible. I want to read my next book.
Why don't you just go do it then? Why is it a secret dream?
It's margin, man. I think to myself, I'd have to do that. I have a rad contract hooked up, though, by the way. Like all my contracts, I don't need any more contracts. I'm good now.
I think, however, when you explain to someone why their book isn't done because your computer didn't work again, I think that's where things would start to fall apart for you.
That's so true. I totally, I read it. I just forgot to hit the record key.
I forgot to hit the record
like 6
button.
Chapters, man.
And it was good. It was the best ever. I did voices and everything.
My best work, And anyways, I'll also give a brief review and kind of a justification. So it's not just reading the chapter. It's me saying, hey, and boom, boom, boom. For $50 or more a month, it's getting up there. Like that's a heavy ask. And with that, I'm going to give you punk monk status. And that brings it. These are all ninja themed, by the way. That's going to give you exclusive access to my Inklings group, where everything I'm writing and working on, it goes into there, and you get to be a part of my creative writing process. You get to tell me what you think, what's working, what's not working. And I tell all the guys in there, this is my baby, but I need you to punch it and kick it. And because that's going to make it better. There's always that thing of once you publish it, it's too late. The next tier up is Ninja Master. And that's where I give you a 1-on-3 phone call once a month. And you get basically, why are you laughing?
Oh, you need so much help.
I do, don't I?
You do.
So that's group coaching.
Please continue.
All right, it's group coaching. Hey, I price this out.
No.
This is not unheard of.
This is not how you sell, bud, man. This is just not how you sell.
I'm doing what you said.
Let me offer a little insight to you. a confused mind does not purchase. You got so many levels. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, am I $1 a month? Am I $5? Am I $50? There's too much. So when you make an irresistible offer, listen to this. When you make an irresistible offer, it's one offer.
Yeah, Patreon doesn't work that way, though.
No. I don't care about Patreon. I'm caring about you trying to pitch people on our podcast.
Okay. So
There is one offer. It is like, this is the irresistible. What is this one beautiful gem that people would be crazy not to have?
All of this for $100. That's what you're saying, because that's what that is at that
Is it
level.
a month or is it one time? How does that work?
Yeah, no, Patreon's like a monthly membership. So you join up, and every month you do that. So this is kind of cool. It's a good learning moment for me, because Patreon, like you said, you get all these different tiers, but you're saying, dude, just package it all as one. And
I don't care if they offer many different tiers. What I'm saying is, when you're promoting it, you're promoting the best single offer that you got. Like, this is the one that everyone wants. Now, I personally wouldn't waste my time with all the rest, because it's just as hard to sell someone $100 a month as it is to sell them $1 a month. Literally, it's just as hard. It's the same buying mechanism in their mind. So I might as well go for the 100 and put all my energy there, because it's going to take me literally 100 people on the other level to equal one person on the 100. So
that's rad.
Why am I wasting my time?
You know what? I totally see that, man. I absolutely see that, because I'm trying out Patreon, and I don't think it's really like I mean, some people use it and swear by it, and they do great. But you're right. I think
it's also because they have like huge podcasts. Like, I don't know if Adam Carolla does it, but he's got one of the largest podcasts in the world. I could see someone like that doing it, and it's just like an easy way to, because if you just got like 0.5%, 0.25% of your listeners to be on any level, you're swimming in cash.
Yeah, absolutely.
We wanted to hear the train. We needed that. I didn't mute my
train and a burp at the same time.
Well, the burp we didn't need so much.
No, you didn't.
Where's my train? So. Here it is. What is that, Jay? I don't want to feel like I missed out on the train, so I'm supplying.
That's not my train, though. No, do you want to hear the burp? Because I think I got another one coming.
Got it. Wow, and welcome everyone to the Church Planter Podcast. If you're wondering, where's the church planting goodness? It's coming. It's
coming.
It's taking a little bit of time for us to swing around to get us there.
Although this isn't probably far off of our topic, because we talked last week, didn't we, about one of the best ways to scratch out a living as a bivo planner. And I came back and said, hey man, that was so good. I want to build off of that. And so kind of in a way, I mean, some of just your expertise of what you're saying, because I just now looking at this go, you know what, you're right. Because at the $100 level, I'm already offering you all that. Why don't I just offer Club Ninja at one level? Boom. It's the same. I get it.
Yeah.
So what I kind of said to Pete was, hey man, why don't you this week share with the guys, like build on that? Because I'm sure last week people were going, dude, that was awesome.
I don't know if they did or not. It was so like unplanned as we started talking about it.
This whole podcast is unplanned. Let's be honest.
That's true. We do pretty much. You guys, we do pretty much right before the call. So, Peyton, what's today's topic? Hey, today we're talking about something I talked about yesterday. Since it's fresh in my mind, this is the subject, right? Isn't that pretty much how you come up with the subject?
Yeah, well, it depends. Yeah, it's something that's kicking around in my mind, something I've been thinking of. Like recently, if we weren't going to talk about this, I'd want to talk about motives, because I'm going through my whole thing with the church plant coming up, where I'm working through motives, and what is my motive, and I'm reflecting a lot on why people church plant. Why am I church planting? Why I can honestly say I am not church planting for a paycheck. Like, my needs are met financially, but I want to see Jesus lifted up in San Diego County. When I first joined NAM, I got to see all these church planters in North County, and I was watching them just fold up. And I started to feel like I was kind of taking it personally, like, I can't take that land down. So, for me, it really is about the honor of Christ. and getting the gospel out there to people. And I'll constantly come back to, is this my motive? Is this what I want to do? And yeah, so yeah, it is normally something that I'm recently thinking about, but I do want to talk about something for Smack Talk. If you're new,
Please.
This is what we do. We talk smack for the first 25 minutes or so.
Did you burp again?
I didn't. I sometimes stop talking to allow you an opportunity to talk. That doesn't happen often, but it does.
Well, that's why I didn't recognize that as a pause for me to interject.
So, Joker trailer. Have you seen it yet?
No.
Dude, it looks good.
Does
Joaquin
it?
Phoenix. I wasn't a believer. In fact, the couple images they showed, I'm like, no thanks. And I saw the trailer today, and I was like, okay, I'm interested in this.
Really?
Yeah.
Here's the thing for me. I remember Batman Begins. Heath Ledger is the Joker, and he just died right before it was released, and everyone's like, oh, he deserves to get an Oscar. He deserves to get an Oscar. And I was like, dude, come on, man. None of this, another Hollywood guy died, let's give him an Oscar business. Like, let's give people Oscars who actually deserve it. And then I saw
like Obama getting the Nobel Peace Prize.
That was stupid.
Before he took office. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Yeah, the guy, never mind. I'm not even going to go off on that. But
it's kind of the same, isn't it?
It's kind of like, but then I saw the movie and I was like, that was an incredible Joker performance.
Yeah, it was.
He actually deserves the Oscar.
Right.
I was like, yes, he was that good as the Joker. And so
he really was, dude.
I just don't see how anyone could reach that level. Like when I saw Suicide Squad, I was like, I didn't even know that that's who that was the Joker, because I'm not a DC guy, right? And I was like, what? Who is this guy? I mean, he's some skinny little punk, and I was just like, whatever. It wasn't until later I realized.
If you paint a guy's face white and you give him green hair and that big smile, Joker could be a dog, he could be a bumblebee, could be.
It wasn't good enough, man. It just,
no, I get you. But that's kind of what there's different incarnations, kind of like we've had incarnations of Batman.
No, I totally get that, but that's why I didn't recognize it, because
he was sadistic in that. He was kind of like a serial killer. Joker. He was actually quite dark in that film. He actually a little scary. But I agree with you. I think Heath Ledger is and Jack Nicholson was great too, simply because he was funny. I mean, he pulled, and that's kind of what Heath Ledger did, is he pulls off that scene where he's coming out of the hospital with the remote control. An interesting factoid about that scene, when he's hitting it and it's not going. So that actually was a malfunction, that it was supposed to go and it didn't work. And so he's doing that, but he stayed in character, and that his whole his mannerism, everything in that. And then he tosses it and it blows up and he jumps. That wasn't planned. And that was a rad way to do that. And everybody laughed in the theater. Couple other iconic things he did. That part where he's got his head out the window like a dog.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such an iconic scene right there.
Oh yeah.
That when he's at the desk with his hands folded in the police station. I mean, there were just some amazing scenes in that he delivered.
Oh, there were. That's why, to me, it's like, you gotta, the bar has been set so high. I saw the image of the new Joker and I didn't even care to watch the trailer. Like, that's what it was.
Same. And this is kind of more Joker's origin story.
Like, what are we back to? Adam West? Is he going to be in this one too? I mean, that's kind of what I felt when I saw the image.
Yeah, the image looked terrible. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, okay, this actually looks pretty good. And what they've done is something that it looks like they haven't done. They've always talked about what if we did a Batman, and this is what I think they're working up towards. They've talked about a Batman reboot. Years ago, Darren Aronofsky was going to do a reboot of Batman in the 70s, but it was going to be kind of like Batman out of the trunk of your car. Like, what would it look like if Batman was a vigilante and, you know, he was a dude actually jamming around with ropes and like in real, almost like a real life, like where the guy's kind of nuts, but he's like, you know, it can't be all the Hollywood and the latex rubber suits. What if a guy really was pulling off Batman? What would that look like? And so it was an uber realistic take on it in the 70s. And, you know, it was intriguing. I was like, wow, that actually sounds like it might work. And it kind of looks like the Joker that they're starting with him to say, what would this look like? So it's less fantastical. It looks a little bit more kind of down to earth, like just a dude falling apart and falling down with clown makeup.
Falling down. Well, you know, you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
You know, hey, sometimes you reach for the red lipstick. Sometimes you reach for the baseball bat. I'm just saying.
Oh, my gosh. Is that in the trailer or something? I don't know.
No. Unfortunately, it's on this podcast.
Well, you know what? Maybe we should, you know, we've been talking about, you know, passing off the podcast, giving it to others. And I'm wondering if maybe we could get like DC or Marvel to hire us to do a podcast about their universes. I think that might be better where I'm suited.
Wouldn't that be great?
Oh,
I would do it. I'd come running for that.
You guys don't understand how many times Peyton has come to me with something having to do with Blizzard and World of Warcraft. And he's like, hey, we could do a magazine for this. We could do a podcast for this. We could get, and I'm like, hey, that's great, man. I think you should do it. He's like, no, don't you want to do it with me? No, man, I think you should do it. I think that would be good for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing is, you know, I want to do a nerd podcast, man.
There already are several nerd podcasts.
I know. Their Patreons are on fire.
You want to know what's funny is, I don't know how this has affected you at all, but Jamie and I keep looking at each other and we're like, when did we get old? Like, I don't know what happened. Like, all of a sudden I'm old now.
I know.
Have you had that?
It happens at 40, but you don't notice it yet. And then those couple years after 40, it starts advertising. You know, it's like you mentioned, like going public. Hey, we're going public with this now. You know, we've been around, but yeah, that's what happens, dude. And everybody starts buying stock in the fact you're old.
Dude, it's just weird. Like every time I got to work with Jimbo, I'm like, dang it, man. I'm now the old guy.
Oh, yeah, dude. You're Obi-Wan. You know, you switch from being Han Solo and Luke. You know, that was a conversation we used to have. I'm Luke Skywalker. Oh, I'm more Han Solo. And then now the conversation is, no, I'm Obi-Wan.
Or I could be the Emperor. He always had Padawans.
Or, well, we're not at the stage yet where we're like, I'm Yoda.
No, thank goodness.
What? You don't have many conversations at that stage.
Oh my gosh, dude! What's funny is I'm talking to this guy. Okay, so I do as everyone knows who listens to the podcast, I do a lot of gun training, firearms training, and there's this I call him. Well, everyone calls him the kid because he's 20 years old, and he's the best freaking person in our class. Like literally the best shooter, the fastest shooter, everything. And we're talking when not the one last night, but it was like a couple of weeks ago. We're talking and we're talking about magazines. So for your firearm in California, for a while, for the last 20 years, you've been limited to a magazine of 10 rounds. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, you don't actually use that, right? Because he's actually got a concealed carry weapons permit. And which is kind of funny because he's not even 21. So he legally can't buy a handgun. But if you have a handgun, which you could have if a parent gave one to you, you can have that when you're 18. So he's had his concealed carry permit for a while. And he's like, he goes, I don't want to do anything that's going to, you know, risk my future. I don't want to get, you know, some cop pulling me over. And, you know, next thing I know, my whole future's out the window. So all I use are 10 round mags. And I'm like, yeah, but you could have had pre-embargo magazines, right? And he goes, dude, they passed that law in 1992. And I'm like, yeah, so you still could have had him pre-embargo. And he goes, I wasn't born till 1997. And I'm like, dude, how freaking young are you? This is ridiculous.
Wow, that was the year I was married.
That was one of my senior years at college. One of my many.
One of my senior years. How many of those do you have?
I had 5. I was a senior for 5 years.
Wow, 5 senior years. That's impressive.
Let me tell you, the parties you get to go to when you're a 5th year senior. Woo-hoo-hoo!
We're not allowed to talk about such things on this podcast, Pete.
They were really just prayer sessions. That's really what they were. No?
I got you.
Not so much. No. Anyway, anywho, should we get on with this week's topic?
We should. Let's get down with our bad selves and launch into it.
Great Scott! It's time for this week's topic.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Wait. Just for you?
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
I was wondering where the lip sync was.
I had to turn on my camera just so you could see me lip sync it.
It's rad.
Yeah, so how are we broaching the subject today?
Well, what is the actual? I know we're building off last week, which was what was the ideal job for you as a Bible, and what I loved. Let me just tell you what I thought was amazing, and I actually popped out this info this week, like I knew what I was talking about. But what came up, if you didn't listen to last week's, is we're talking about the ideal kind of jobs, and one of the things that we've talked about in the past was jobs like real estate. And what you brought up last week that really I thought was brilliant was you mentioned how a real estate agent, they sell a house, it's like a one-stop shop, and they got to go hustle, get the new clients. And, they're kind of like pyramid sellers. They're always after the new clients. And whereas you were like, hey, someone like Jimbo and auto detailers, they've got recurring. It's not that they're not going after new clients. They will. But they also have a capacity issue, but they can spend the chunk of their time actually making the money because they've got recurring clients. And I thought that was a really good insight, something I had never thought about before, and I'm sure a lot of our planners haven't. So perhaps, you're the guy with the expertise on this, so I don't know where you'd want to take it to build off of last week.
I don't know, and I wouldn't even say necessarily that there's like one specific industry or job that's going to be appropriate by any stretch of the imagination. I think one of the lines that I use all the time with people that I train is you got to play to your strengths. And so most of the time I'm referring to social media because that's like everyone's big question. Like I train literally tens of thousands of real estate agents every year between my webinars, my live events. Like I got one coming up next week. And I don't do them solo by myself. I've got a partner for that. And the question that always comes up is social media. And it comes up in business, right? Every business is like, what should I be doing on social media? And they hear about Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter and Nextdoor and LinkedIn and YouTube. And they're like, what should I be doing? I should be doing all these. How do I do this all? And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, man, you got to play to your strengths because there is not a lack of ways that you can get out there. There are so many different things. Like for me, I don't personally like doing videos. I don't like how I look on video. I don't like how I sound on video. I don't like video. I personally love podcasting. Like this is my thing. I love doing this. I don't like writing. I'm not like you, someone who could sit there and, write out an article, a blog post, and you're energized by sharing information that way. For me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. So if someone told me, hey, look, you have to podcast or not podcast, if you have to blog every day, for the next 9 months to a year, if you want to make it, I'd be like, forget it, man. I'm going to go work at McDonald's because at least that's not going to stress me out. So you got to play to your strengths. Right. And that comes into what you do for your day job. And, we kind of talked about this last week, so I don't want to rehash this. But the big thing that I do is business growth consulting and training, which is an offshoot of the business growth consulting. And so when I talk to pastors, and I talk to them before I take them into the training, because I want to tell them if I think it's going to be a good fit or not. I feel like I owe it to them for that. And like, I got a couple of applications this last week, and I was looking at one of them, and I was like, based on what this guy said right here, this is going to be a tough conversation for me to have with him, because I don't think this is going to be right. And how can I help him? Like, he's a pastor. He's probably a church planner, because obviously that's who comes in from the show. And I'm like, I got to figure out a way that I can help this guy, send him in the right direction, whatever, because I don't think this is going to be right for them. I think what happens a lot of times is people see the income that's possible doing this, and the little time that it takes to do it. And so they'll jump on it, and they'll be like, oh yeah, man, that's what I want to do. But there's still like, it's not like all of a sudden you go through the training and next thing you know, you're making a couple $100,000 a year. There's still work involved. In fact, I got an email after I sent out an email this last week, and I think you saw it too, right? Because that's the whole reason we're doing this podcast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had somebody respond to it, as I always do, right? Some pastor somewhere wants to give me a piece of his mind. And so anyway, what I thought was interesting is the guy just said, hey, you know what? When we do bivo training, we don't focus on, basically, we don't focus on what to do for a living, because the problem is that, people will turn their eyes towards the gold, as he put it, right? The making money part. And I totally understand where he's coming from. When we first, or I should say, I first really approached you and said, hey, look, I want to bring this to some of our pastors. I want to give them this as an opportunity.
I was like, no way, man. You're just trying to make money off of church planners. No way. I don't approve.
No. But I mean, like,
no, it was the opposite. It was, hey,
I had to pray about it a lot, because I was like, God, I don't want to take their focus off of what you've called them to do. Please help me to just, have these honest conversations with people and tell them if it's right for them or not right for them, or what. And because not everyone is successful. Like, so much of what it takes to be, successful, quote unquote, in business,
right,
relies on you and the actions you take.
Right.
And so one of the things that I tell people is, I go, look, I'm not going to hold anything back. You're not going to be like, Pete didn't give me the secret to this. I'm going to tell you everything that it takes. I'm going to tell you everything that I'm doing. I'm going to, pull back the curtain. I'm going to show you everything. But the reality is, I can't make you take action. I can't make you actually do this stuff. And even those guys that do it, sometimes they're just not doing it, the right way, or with the right,
as evidenced by my Patreon.
Right, with the Patreon.
Like, I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it right.
Yeah, and so there is a.
But you should still join it, everybody.
Yeah, you should still give to my Patreon. But there is a there is a learning curve, and I've told some guys, I go, look, this is going to be easier for you than it is for others. And part of the reason why it's going to be easier for you, like Dan Sams is a great example, right? I mean, he just took it and ran with it. But he was already a self-employed person. He did website design. So for him, it was not a big transition, because he already had that mentality of, every morning I wake up, I got to get on the hunt. And I got to go find a client, and, I got to do that stuff. So he already had that mentality. It's really tough for guys who, and just like it was for me when I first, became self-employed. It's really hard at the beginning to realize, okay, you got to still get up in the morning. Right. My office is 10 feet away from my bed. I still got to get dressed. I got to take my shower. I got to be out here by a certain time. I got to start working, because that's the way that I make money. And there's a learning mindset change. There's all of that stuff that comes into play. So I never want to give people, well, I do want to give the people that it's a simple concept to do what I do. It is very simple, but it's not that it's necessarily easy, because there is like this whole internal shift that has to happen. And then at the same time, you're trying to plant a church, and it's like, like you remember this. We've had the conversation so many times in our Voxer group about, should I sell to people in my congregation or should I not? And my philosophy has always been, I wouldn't sell to people in the church. And then we've got other guys who have gone through the training, guys like Aaron Bump, who are like, look, everyone knows I'm bivocational. That's never been a secret. So I don't have any problem selling to people in the church because I'm bivocational. They all know I'm bivocational. This is what I do. And I think that that comes down to a personal decision, a personal choice, why you're doing one thing or another. But I mean, those are some of the tough things that you got to tackle when you go to being self-employed. I do, however, think that being self-employed is one of the best things you can do as a church planner. Really in just in life. I mean, otherwise you are subject to the crown that is over you, and I think you're a great example. When you were full-time with NAM, when NAM said, hey, by the way, you got to fly over here, you had to fly over there.
I did.
It wasn't like, and it, as you've said, it was a time in your life. This was what you needed in your life. It was a great
total
job.
godsend, but
exactly. But it controlled you, totally controlled you. And that's what jobs do, you know, and when you're self-employed, I mean, it's a different game. I mean, you still have things to consider, but it's not the same. Like, I'm joining a group right now, man, you're going to love this. I'm joining a mastermind group that costs $25,000 a year to be in.
Wow.
And by the way, this was really funny, right? So I applied it to join this group. I mean, anybody you can think of who's a known person has either been a member or is currently a member. Like
right.
Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank's a member. Peter Diamandis.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
Oh, I mean, like, the reason I'm joining is for the people that I'm going to be able to basically make friends with and hobnob with and stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into that, right? So I'm being interviewed to see if I'm a good fit for it. And the guy, and I totally know who the guy is, right? Like, he's a hero in the marketing world. And he goes, yeah, so what's this church planner thing that you do? Because I've looked you up. And, who's your partner? And I go, oh, my partner's Peyton Jones. I go, he's actually the church planner. And like on the podcast, I call myself the color commentary. And, that's my job on that. And he goes, yeah, I listened to your most recent episode.
Oh, no.
Part of your most recent episode. And I'm like, like, that's the thought going through my head. And he goes, yeah, it was the one where you were like, way to go, Trump 2020, Trump 2020. And I started dying, right? Because if you guys remember that, Peyton and I are not Trump supporters. We are not Trump fans. We're not Democrats either. But I did my taxes. And as I mentioned on the podcast, for the first time ever, I'm getting a refund, and my refund was $25,000. And the way refunds work when you're self-employed is they don't actually give you the money. They just apply it to your next year's taxes. So it's not like I got a check for it. And so the guy's like, well, you're getting a refund for $25,000. It costs you $25,000 to come into our program. So I know money's not the issue. You got the money. And I'm like dying because I'm like, yeah, I realize that really helps out your sale. But as I said on the podcast, they don't actually give me the money. It just goes to the next year's taxes. But it was pretty funny. That's
pretty funny, dude.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were going to say that he listened to the podcast and he rethought his life. And he's like, this is my last sale. And I'm going to go plant a church. Sale. Or I'm going to fund New Breed Church. I'm going to join Peyton's Patreon. I was kind of hoping you were going there, but all right.
Yeah. No.
That's funny, dude. That's actually really funny. So he actually listened to it. He cyberstalked you.
He listened to the first part of it. Yeah. Well, think about it. If you're going to get on the phone with someone to make a $25,000 sale, which I don't know what he gets out of that. I'm sure he gets paid something out of that. You're going to do your research. I mean, a good salesman is going to do your research. So he went to my website, and the website refers to the podcast. and he went and listened to the first part of the podcast. I mean, he Google searched me. He wanted to find out what he could, which is what a good sales professional is going to do. And so it just happened to work out nice. So when we were joking about it, he's like, yeah, now if you were only getting 20 grand back, it wouldn't have worked out as nice. But the fact that you're getting 25,000 and it cost you 25,000, I mean, it's perfect. So
that's so rad, dude.
Yeah. But I don't even know why I walked down that path anymore. I've totally lost that train of thought.
It was a fun story, though.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I don't know.
You were basically where you left off, as you're saying, look, like I can tell you what to do, but I can't make you do the work. That's fair enough. I mean, you have opened the storehouse, has shown everyone, and I've seen this even in church planning, brother, where I've even actively coached church planners. This is what you need to do, and then when I get back on a call with them, they haven't done anything, and that can go on for weeks to months.
Yeah.
And, when the church planner folds, I'm not surprised, because it does take a certain amount of work ethic to make that stuff happen.
Yeah, and I want to be careful, too, because I know there are some guys who work and still aren't successful, but most of the time it's because there's just like little tweaks that they need to do to change things. Kind of like we were talking about with your Patreon. Just
absolutely, dude. It's a perfect example because like that stuff I wouldn't even have thought about. I'm like, oh, I'm running the Patreon. I've followed their thing. I've got these multiple tiers. They don't give a rip about me, And so, but what you said actually made a lot of sense, and I think that for me is a huge takeaway. Why wouldn't I just put all that stuff in one price point and then just roll with it? Boom.
Yeah.
Offer that membership.
I don't even really care if Patreon has multiple tiers, but anytime you're selling it, just usually go for the top tier.
Right.
Or at most two, I got option A and option B. If you start going, I got option A, B, C, D, E, F, then it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Just, forget it. I'm out.
Well, I can definitely say that right now, I have one person join my Patreon for $1, and it's the poorest guy I know. So,
Dude, that kind of reminds me of Refuge when they were taking offering. And you'd see the homeless people dumping in money. And I'm like, dude, they're giving more than the rest of us are. Because that's like $5 to them is $5 freaking $. That's a lot of money.
Big time, man. So, So, I mean, there's something about the Patreon thing that's not working anyways,
Well, it just all that stuff's going to take time, especially like the problem with Kickstarter and Patreon type stuff is when people come up with, like in Kickstarter and Indiegogo, they come up with rewards that are actually, let's leave them out because that's a whole nother mess. But like GoFundMe is a good example. When you're asking people to give you money for essentially nothing,
right?
Which is not the way you're doing Patreon, but it's the way that I've seen Patreon done. Hey, just be a supporter and help my creativity. That's great, but no one cares about that.
Right.
I mean, they just don't. There's nothing in it for them. GoFundMe is the same thing. Usually people give because they feel guilty or, someone's about ready to die and I know the family and I want to support them, which is great. Right. I think people should do it. But it's tough when you're just basically asking for money. Think about your church. Think about when you pass the plate in church. How hard is it to get people to give you money for the church? It's the same thing because they don't see what's in it for them. And that's a whole nother topic. And I don't want to.
No, but that's a really, really good point. And, I know it's different. I know it's kind of that, but you were talking earlier about the psychology, and those are the things that I think people don't realize when they're doing things like you're talking about selling. I wouldn't have a clue where to begin on selling. I mean, that is so not my world. And, just where you brought up that you and I have always talked about this, that your book, Scientific Advertising, that there is a science behind this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's super helpful, but if you don't know that stuff, then.
Well, it's funny because I was, the detailer program that I do with Jimbo, we had our group call yesterday. And one of the things that we were talking about is I started reading this book. It's called How to Sell at Margins Higher Than Your Competitors. And the guy goes, everyone thinks price is the reason why people decide things, and price is almost never the reason why people decide things. It's part of it, but it's not the key. And price is always bigger in the mind of the seller than it is in the mind of the buyer. And he goes, and I prove this to people. He goes, there's 5 things that people look at, price, quality, service, sales capacity, and basically how you get it. So did I get it on time, when I wanted it, where I wanted it, that kind of a thing. And so I was bringing this up with our detailers. I was like, you guys are concerned about, your prices and what your competitors are doing. But one of the things that this guy points out is he goes, when I do my seminars, I'll ask people, I'll say, that shirt that you're wearing right now, was that the cheapest shirt there was? And he goes, almost no one says, yes, it is. He goes, but even if they say, yes, it is, he goes, okay, well, what if it didn't fit? Would you have still bought it, even though it was the cheapest shirt? Well, no, because it didn't fit. So, okay, fit was one of your criteria. What if it was, like in your case, it was pink? And, would you have still bought it? Well, no, it needed to be the right color. So in other words, there are all of these criteria that go into you buying even a shirt, of which price is just one of the things. And so what really people are looking for is, how can I justify the price that person is asking? Does it make sense? Apple is a great example. Apple's products are all exorbitantly overpriced, which is why, weren't they like the first $1 trillion company? I mean, wasn't that what they finally hit? Like some absurd number like that. Do you remember?
No,
I don't know. But I mean, people are always looking for, how do I justify buying, this laptop or this desktop or this iPhone or this whatever, because they are exorbitantly overpriced.
Right.
And price is not the issue. Price isn't, like, Apple knows price isn't the issue. They just give you the reason why, and you justify it. Well, I'm going to buy the iPhone because I've already got the computer and the iPad, so it'll be easy for me to transfer stuff, and I can keep it all on the same platform. I mean, that's literally the reason why I don't leave Apple, and I personally right now hate Apple. I don't like their privacy policy. I don't like this whole, hey, we're going to make your equipment run worse just so you got to buy new ones that they got caught for doing. But I'm still stuck, right? Because I got all of their equipment and I can't switch over to Android now. It's like, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in their ecosystem. Right. So there are other reasons why people buy things and do things. And the same thing is true when it comes to, being a business growth consultant. So like, when I brought on who's now my number one client, I think it was $15,000 up front at the time, and it was $2,500 a month. And I like choked when they said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do the $15,000. Mm-hmm. Now I find out later that the guy before me, she'd paid $60,000 to. So I was like, wow. Okay, I was an idiot and like well undershot that. I could have asked for a lot more and would have gotten it, and then I would have been more freed up to even invest more time in her stuff. She probably would have been happier. I would have been happier. Everyone would have been happier. But for me, the conversation in my mind was, man, I'm asking for the world. I'm asking for $15,000 and $2,500, and didn't realize that wasn't the world to her. So,
is there a time where you, in a situation like that, though, is there a time where you kind of, when you're building a relationship, that you go for the win? And that is the kind of the lower price point to get your foot in the door? Or do you feel like that's kind of a bad idea?
Most of the time, no, because you never want to be the low price leader ever.
Right.
It doesn't work for you.
Right.
It's never going to work out in your favor. You're not going to be able to then later raise your price up to what it needs to be. Right. So what I want is for people to be like, oh my gosh, he wants what? And then they have to make the decision, well, we're either going to hire the best or we're just going to hire some joker. Like, there reaches a point in your life, and church planners, depending on your life, you may not have reached this yet. I certainly have reached the point where I used to buy always whatever was the cheapest. And now I almost never do that. And it's not because, I'm willing to just go stupid with money. It's because I know that there are other things that are more important to me. Like I want the stuff to show up on time. I want, like, I'll give you an example here. And I know this is kind of a deviation from where we started this podcast. So this last weekend, my family and I were shopping for a new patio table and chairs for our backyard because our old one is just warped and needed to go. So, we went to Lowe's and Living Spaces, and we end up over at Home Depot. And Home Depot actually has like the perfect patio table, the perfect chairs, everything. But it's really big. So I go over to the customer service desk, and I'm like, yeah, I wanted to ask you guys about that patio table you got over there. They're like, okay, what can I help you with? I'm like, first of all, I wanted to know, what does it cost to deliver it? And they're like, okay, it's $79 to deliver. I'm like, okay, perfect. And, can I get it assembled and delivered? And then they start going, oh, well, you know what? It costs more when it's assembled. And I'm like, okay. And I'm literally just like standing there. And finally I look at her and I go, so were you going to call someone to find out how much it's going to cost? And she's like, well, it's going to be more. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be more. Can you find out how much more? Like in her mind, it's going to cost more. So you don't want to do that.
Right.
In my mind, I'm like, I don't care about the cost. I have no way to get it home, and I'm way too freaking lazy to assemble something, right? I'm not going to do it. Like, that's just not where my time is best spent, is putting together a patio table. So my wife could tell I was getting really annoyed. And I wanted to say, could I please talk to someone in customer service, which would have been really funny because I'm standing at the customer service desk talking to the gal, but she's clearly not providing me any customer service. So they end up having to make 2 phone calls, and she comes back to me and she goes, okay, it's exactly the same. It's $79. And I go, okay, what does it cost to assemble it? Oh, that's free. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, seriously? I've been like standing here this whole time and it's the same. I'm like, just do it, assemble it and deliver it. But money wasn't my issue. Money was her issue. It was in her head. That was, and it wasn't even, she's customer service. What does she care?
Right.
But that was the problem that was racing around in her head. And so you got to keep that stuff in mind too when you're self-employed, is that money is not usually the issue. It's the issue in your head because you're selling something. It's not the issue in their head. So I know this conversation totally deviated from what you wanted.
Well, no, it's okay because it is kind of a glimpse into, the things that I know we're not, like, I'm not really involved in Bivo anymore, but it is kind of something that, the more, so here's the thing. I foresee personally, a couple things. I really do think that bivocationalism is going to be the way forward. Yeah. I see a lot of trendy things right now. And one of the things that people are doing is, you know how like the church cycles through things that become the Great White Hope, like the missional movement. I was listening to something Hugh Halter said recently, and he said make-believe missional movements, where people and pastors have always done this. They talk a good game and they'll use the buzzwords. Oh, we're missional. And they're still stuck, And the other day I was chatting with someone and they said, hey, you're planning, what's your vision? I shared, want to do a multiplication network in my city. I just want to do something local that, I could have done better in Long Beach had I lived there. But, that's my heart. It started years ago with Train Station, and we did okay. Most of those guys are still planting and at it. And I'm in a good way, I'm proud of that. I think we serve them well, but there's a lot to be said. Like that, those were people that I was able to really train. I didn't always train. I trained the guys on the ground, but I didn't give them a lot of the background that I would have liked to have given. But anyways, all that, it was an active training relationship, and I want to get that up and going again. And somebody said, oh, well, so-and-so is going to be doing that. And so citywide networks are a big thing. And way back then, I knew, this is back in like 2014, 15, I knew that citywide networks, if you could get churches to work together to plant. That'd be rad. But over the years, I've started to see that become a trend. And I know that that's going to be talk. A lot of it's going to be talk, and it's not really going to happen. But it'll become the buzzword. Everyone will talk about it. Organizations and programs and, things will start up. Bivocational stuff, entrepreneurial stuff, business as mission stuff. All this will start up, and like there's a business as mission group that started up, and it was started by people who had never done business as mission, and they were asking people to pay to come into this group. I think what I'm kind of saying is,
was it really?
What's that?
They were saying do business as mission, pay to come in this group, and they've never done it.
And
themselves?
They've never done it. Oh. And so you're supposed to go in and you're supposed to learn from them, but they had never done it themselves. And so, moving on to how you remember that vision I kind of shared where what if we had a space where we were working with local business leaders who, were Christians, barber, this kind of thing. Like I met with a barber recently. He goes, my barbershop's like a little missional church. And I just met him to say, hey, would you maybe want to partner with our church plant? Open up a gentleman's barbershop. And so I've just been meeting with local business leaders and kind of chatting with people. But now this is going to become the thing where you get a warehouse, you make it a business. But again, I still think people are going to get stuck in this because I still think no matter what model people are using, there's still that kind of like the missional movement was the Great White Hope. So I think that, a lot of these things become the Great White Hope, and they're not really going to, you still got to get out there and reach people. And so there's a lot of similarities. There's, when we're talking about, like when you're saying, hey, I really want to help these guys, not be poor, make some money. But at the end of the day, there is that blood, sweat, and tears. There's that action that needs to be taken. And there's similarities to what you're saying in the world of church planting. But I think what's good today is just, if nothing else, man, it gave a glimpse into some of the expertise and some of the things that guys just like me. I mean, just sitting here, I've known you 6 years. We've been doing a podcast 6 years. We've even done ventures together. And I'm sitting here learning on this podcast, like, wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome. So kind of like the little, what would you say to anyone? Because, you want to have guys, you feel this as part of your calling, like, when we kind of decided, hey, maybe we move on to other things. I know you felt like, hey, I still feel called to do this. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? And
what I decided for myself was, one, you and I, we started something called the Bivo Inner Circle, and we've basically been wrapping that thing up. And I think we're basically entering the last month of that. And lots of reasons for it. None of them because of the guys that are in it. The guys and gals that are in it have just been awesome. One, for me, one of the things that I've learned is that there's a direct correlation in between what people invest and how much they then invest in themselves going forward doing that stuff, like taking action. There's actually a scientific term for it. It's called the sunk cost bias or sunk capital bias, something like that. And basically, the more money that someone spends, the more dedicated they are to the process. And I realized, okay, so the people who I've had the most success with, meaning they've gotten the most out of it, they've been able to take action and move forward. And certainly not everybody, but most of the guys who have gone through it and gals have been in what we referred to as the Platinum Bivo Inner Circle, which is basically being a business growth consultant, going through that training, learning how to put together training programs, doing CEO roundtables, stuff like that, because it's a significantly higher investment. And so I was just like, okay, look, this is not a focus for me. I'm not like, hey, I want to get, 500 pastors through this. That's not my thing. I want to work with a small group because I have a regular business going on, right? So it's like small group. I want a small group of pastors that I can work with, that I can help, that I believe are going to take this stuff and run with it and be able to implement it. And And so I was just like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. It's not going to be, the Bivo Inner Circle that you and I did. It's just basically going to be the business growth consulting training program. And just for a small group of pastors each time I do it. And I haven't done it for over a year. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to at least open the door. And if no one comes through it, all right, not a biggie, because I got my own business. This is more to help people. And I'm going to leave it at that. And if God wants me to do it, then I'll continue to do it. And if he doesn't, then I won't worry about it. It's just one of those, that's kind of the way that I see it. And so I just tell everyone, if you're at all interested in the business growth consulting, if you're like, hey, I want to know if that's something that would be right for me, then what you do is go over to bivowebinar.com, bivowebinar.com. And you can watch like a recent replay or sign up to watch one of the next ones and go through that webinar. I'm going to tell you my story on there, which I think we've mentioned on the podcast once before, but it's, I just felt like I needed to tell everyone, this is my story. This is how I ended up, on a bankruptcy court doorstep, if you will, deciding, all right, I got to do something different with my life. I'm going to go into this business growth consulting thing. And so I tell that whole story, and then I tell you, this is what it takes to be a business growth consultant. These 3 things. If you can do these 3 things, this is something that you can do. And then I tell you, look, if you want to go through the training, here's what the training all is. Here's what the investment is. And your next step is to set an appointment with me. And by the way, I will not take your credit card on the phone. I won't let you sign up. That's a time for us to literally talk to each other, find out, is this a good fit? If it is, then I'm going to have you pray about it. I'm going to have you talk to your spouse about it. And then, a couple days later, we'll decide. I mean, that's just kind of the way that I take it. It's anti-sales, if you will, because I wouldn't do that if I were doing it with anybody other than pastors. It is because I don't want to take your eyes off the prize. If God has called you to do one thing, and I don't want you to be like, yeah, but this could be my answer. And then, all your energy goes into it, and what God's called you to has gone to the wayside. I want you to pray about it, think about it, make sure this thing is right. So yeah, if you're interested, head over to bivowebinar.com. If the site is still up, then I'm taking people into the program. If it's not up, then I got my small little group and I closed it off. So that's what I'd say. Head over to bivowebinar.com and check it out.
Very cool. All right. Well, Pete, while they're watching all those webinars and trying to plant their church, where would they go to make sure that someone's looking after all of the church finances and
it would be simplifychurch.com over there with Josh Henry. That's where they would head.
Oh, that's easy. See, it didn't take long, and we already got that kind of help and wisdom from Mr. Pete Mitchell. That's simplifychurch.com. They will handle all of your bookkeeping, your IRS compliancy, and even a personal assistant. And you should head on over there. And guys, thanks for joining us today. This has been Peyton Jones and Pete Mitchell, reminding you, if you want to reach the ones nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.